Welcome everybody. It's good to see some of you. We'll spend a lot of time with each other over the next couple of months, and I just want to kind of reemphasize what Armand said, and that is we we have your son's best interest in mind. We've done this many times. The upper school is it's a different division. Schedules are different. Expectations are different. Time management skills can be different. So as we start this process formally, understand that we do the best we can, putting your son in the correct placement, in the correct class. All of your sons will have an advisor, and we're going to work on that in the next couple of weeks. In terms of placement issues, those are things that are done in various ways. But we feel pretty comfortable. We've got a program in place, and we've got a protocol in place that has your son in the right level, and also in the right place in terms of advisory. So our schedule is different, and Mr. Broadus, who was our registrar, also the chair of the classics department, Gilman grad, has been scheduling for a long time. The upper school schedule is a pretty complicated thing. We not only have to place 120 some rising ninth graders, but we've got 120 10th graders, 120 11th graders, and 120 12th graders. So we've got an upper school that's about 485 boys that have to be placed. We also have coordination with the girls' schools, Bryn Mawr and Roland Park, and their schedule is exactly the same as ours. So there are a lot of moving parts. And one of the things that we want to make sure that you understand is that we can't just take kids out of one section and put them in another section, or one class in another class. There's a lot that goes into the schedule, and Toby does a great job putting the pieces of the puzzle together to try to provide your son with the best placement. So it's a work in progress. Armand and his team will work with you and your sons to make sure that we get this thing going. And we in the upper school are going to rely on middle school advisors to help get this stuff loaded in, and then Mr. Broadus can put it together. So what I want to do is I want to take a couple minutes and share with you what our day looks like. So I'm gonna go ahead and share, and hopefully you all can see what's on the screen right now. So just to kind of give you, let me hit the present button here. Essentially, what you see here is our schedule, and let me see if I can explain it to you. In the upper school, we run on an odd even period day. Right? So we used to do a 10-day cycle. Now we're basically doing odd and even. We have 3 periods of a day. Your boys will take 6 classes. They will take 3 classes during the odd day. They will take 3 classes during the even day. Our classes are 80 minutes in the upper school. And we changed the schedule probably about 4 or 5 years ago. And what we discovered is that having boys for a longer period of time with a longer break in between classes, is really the best for them. There are schools that go 40, 45 minutes. I know the middle school is a little different. Their classes are shorter. For us, this is something that we've found to be very, very helpful. 80 minutes gives the boys a lot of time, our teachers a lot of time to vary the teaching methods. It allows plenty of time for assessments. It allows plenty of time for review or work that can be done for the next class. So how those 80 minutes are done is really important. And we've worked really hard over the last 3 or 4 years to try to figure out the best way to do 80 minutes. Unlike the middle school, we have 20 minutes in between periods. And so you can see that after the first period from 8 to 9:20, there's a 20-minute, what we call passing period. And not only is this good, I think, practice for high school boys, but it's also something that's necessary because we have boys and girls going across the bridges. It literally takes about 20 minutes, well, probably a little less, 15 to 18 minutes for a boy to get across to Bryn Mawr if they've got a class. So that time period is necessary. They'll then move on to second period, another passing time, a third period, and then after the third period is lunch. So, years ago, we had lunch at 11:15, 11:20. We've pushed it back to 12:40. And from 12:40 to 1:40, we essentially have two things in place. We've got lunch, and then we have community time, which is community time is either advisory or form meetings, which are meetings for the respective classes, or assembly, which we have guest speakers and we have senior speakers and things like that. So essentially what's going to happen is your boy will take 6 classes, and those 6 classes will be spread out over 2 days. So what you'll see here is that every odd day, the schedule is the same. It doesn't change. And every even day, the schedule is the same. So what I did is I just put together kind of a mock schedule. And in this particular example, on this even day, the boy takes physics, algebra 2, and world cultures. On even day, he takes Spanish, he takes baseball and statistics, which is the elective. Each of your sons will have an elective they'll have to choose, and then English. So the core courses would be Spanish, physics, algebra, world cultures, and English. The elective would be baseball and statistics. And this rotates through every week. We designate a day as an even or odd day. And this is the schedule that they'll go through. So essentially they're going to get, for example, their physics class every other day. They will not have physics every day. They'll have it every other day. And that's true for all their classes. Wednesdays in the upper school, we start at 9 o'clock every Wednesday. It gives up the upper school faculty time to have meetings. It gives your boys time to sleep in if they need to, maybe come in early and get some work done, whatever they choose to do. But our classes will then go from 80 minutes to 60 minutes so that we can get it all in with that hour delay, okay? After, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the next part, but after community time is ended at 1:40, what we get is an afternoon schedule. And the afternoon schedule actually goes off of the regular day of the weeks. And we divide it into A and B week. And you can see that we have basically 2 blocks in each week, A week or B week. And they're about 45 minutes. And what these allow the boys to do is to pick electives. For example, all 9th graders will take health and guidance. You can see that on A week, Wednesday. If a boy is in band, it will be pre-assigned to him. Robotics, Gilman News, Gilman TV, Environmental Club, coding. These are all opportunities for boys to take afternoon activities. This is just a small sampling of what the boys can take in the afternoon. All of our publications, our yearbook, our literary magazine, our robotics is on there. We've got a whole slew of opportunities. This is just kind of a snapshot of how this works. So essentially what we're doing is we are getting 2 sets of schedules. This schedule will be done soon. This schedule will not be done until we come back in the fall. So nothing is going to be decided in the afternoon until we come back in late August, early September. This one will be done in a relatively short period of time. Okay, so I'm going to stop. If you have questions, we can take them in a minute. I'm going to allow Mr. Broadus to talk a little bit about the process of getting this schedule created. So, Mr. Broadus.
Thanks, Rob. And I think just to clarify, Mr. Heubeck's, the part of the schedule that you're involved with will be done soon. I think in the next week, those selections will be made. The actual scheduling process, unfortunately, will take a little longer, and we won't have results for you for a month or so. As Mr. Heubeck pointed out, what we're really scheduling is those first six periods that meet in the odd and even sections during the day. So we're dealing completely with 6 classes, and we're actually going to make this a little simpler because we're getting close to my bedtime and take some of those choices away from you. So the first course that every 9th grade boy will take next year will be English 9. So every boy is going to take that. There is no decision to be made. Very cleverly, you will continue in that progression and take English 10 his sophomore year, and he will take English 11 his junior year. There are a number of English electives that'll be open to him his senior year. If you look actually at the course guide, which is online, you'll see that in some ways, the number of English electives we offer are more than many small colleges. It's an amazing array of courses that are possible. Every 9th grade boy will take world cultures. That's the required history course for 9th graders. The required history course for 10th graders is Making Modern Europe. All juniors will take US history. And then there are a number of senior electives that are available for boys when they're reached that period. So we've already dealt with a third of the schedule, and we think we've taken up about 2.5 minutes here. So we're making good progress. The next 2 courses also have been chosen for you. The level, however, will have been chosen by the middle school. So every 9th grade boy will take math. Most boys will take either honors algebra 2 or regular algebra 2. There will be some boys for whom the right choice is to retake algebra 1. There are some boys who are advanced who are going to be taking honors geometry. And I believe there's one child who's also going to be taking honors BC pre-calculus. Most boys will then proceed to take geometry or honors geometry their sophomore year, one of the 3 levels of pre-calculus their junior year, which actually completes their math requirement, but most boys will continue to take math into their senior year. For science, the boys will take physics at either the honors physics or regular physics. And again, that level is predetermined by the middle school. In order to be an honors physics, you also must be an honors math. That is required. There are some boys who have been requested to take summer physics. The boys who've been requested to take summer physics will take a course called Academic Lab as one of their 6 course options, which will give them additional time to work with our learning specialist. So we're now 2/3 of the way done. So we're making good progress here. The first choice the boys have to make is their choice of language. They'll have to take this language for 3 consecutive years. There are 7 choices between the modern and classical languages that will fulfill the language requirement. So we have Arabic, Chinese, Ancient Greek, Latin, Russian, Spanish, and I forgot French alphabetically, so apologize for that. So any of those 7 courses can be used to fulfill the school's language requirement. A couple things to note. Arabic, Chinese, Russian, and French 1 are off campus. That's important because if your son is someone who has struggled in languages, he should not be taking one of those off-campus languages. With the new schedule, additional help, their teachers are willing to offer additional help. With the new schedule, the boys' schools and the girls' schools do not line up accurately in the afternoon. So getting additional help during those time slots is much more complicated than it used to be. So if you're someone who struggles in languages, those are not good choices. The other thing to consider with taking those unique languages is, in the case of Arabic, Chinese, Arabic and Russian, you're going to have the same teacher for 4 years. That can be a very positive experience. That can be a less than positive experience, right? Some people are going to mesh really well. Some people are not going to mesh very well. There's no variation there. There are 2 Chinese teachers, but again, depending on how you flow through the system, there may not be a lot of change there. So any of those 7 languages can be chosen for your primary language. If you choose a unique language, and in Arabic, Chinese, French 1, and Russian, I start with 5 spaces available to Gilman boys. There'll be approximately 120 boys in the freshman class. So those courses are likely to lottery depending on demand for them. Those are the type of courses that when you're talking with your son's advisors, or your son is talking to his advisor, he is going to have to provide alternate choices. And the alternate choices always have to be provided out to a course that won't lottery. So if your first choice is Arabic, your second choice is Chinese, your third choice is Russian, you have to finally end with a choice that will not run out of space, which would be French, other than French 1, Greek, Latin, or Spanish. So that takes care of the first choice. The second choice is your son's elective choice. These fall into sort of three basic categories. The first category, and the most popular category, there are 27 boys in the current freshman class pursuing this option, is to double up and take a second language. And we have boys doubling up and taking a second language who are honors level boys, and we have boys doubling up and take a second language who just really like language. They're a solid regular student, but they want to take two languages. So we have a large crew of people who do that, and that's an option for that 6-course option. That's an option you can continue throughout the your three consecutive years, or you can come off that track if you decide you don't want to continue taking two languages. The middle, this sort of the second option with that 6 courses is an option that you potentially can continue through the rest of your upper school experience, but the choice is not yours, it's the department's. And those are our arts electives. So the arts electives are open to all freshman boys. Whether you're able to continue or not in an arts elective is based on your performance during your freshman year. So the options there would be drawing and painting, pinhole to digital, which is a photography course, and sculpture 1. Sculpture 1 and pinhole to digital theoretically have limited spaces, although we now have 2 pinhole to digital sections, so we have more spaces than we used to. Those are courses where you should provide alternate choices as well. The third category of 6-course options are those courses which you take for your freshman year, and then in sophomore year you'll drift into the standard program, which would be art and music history. And those 3 courses would be American government, baseball and statistics, and robotics. For each of those 3 courses, you should provide backup options as well. Although they may not, may not be needed. In terms of what boys are doing this year, I mentioned that 27 boys are taking 2 languages. We have 19 boys who are taking drawing and painting, 18 who are taking baseball and statistics, 18 who are taking pinhole to digital, 18 who are taking robotics, 15 who are taking American government, and 7 who are taking sculpture. So just give you a sense of what the generation before your sons has done. The final option you have to make, so essentially you're picking 2 courses and with backup options. The only other decision you have to make, if you're interested in Mr. Gouline's summer course, which Mr. Heubeck will elaborate on in a second, but if you're interested in Mr. Gouline's summer course, that is a choice you can indicate in the scheduling process as well, because that'll pass your contact information on to Mr. Gouline. Mr. Heubeck, do you mind talking a little bit about that summer course?
Not at all. So our math chair, Jeff Gouline, offers a very, very, I think, robust and just advantageous program in the summer that runs for the most of the month of July. It's 3 hours in the morning, and the boys kind of rotate between a language arts, a math, and a kind of a writing portion of the day. I know one of the things that they cover is the summer reading, and really it's an enrichment program that Jeff Gouline has run for many years. It has taken off in terms of popularity. It is free, which is most important, and it's a really great opportunity for your boys to not only get a step ahead in some ways, but also to get to know at least 4 faculty members before the year starts, and also a cohort of boys that they may not have known very well, either in middle school or some boys that are coming in from other schools. So I think in some of the language and some of the documents that you have, you will see a section that references this. I can put Jeff's email in the chat, and you can feel free to email him at any point with questions or more information. I was talking to Jeff this morning, and he, it's a passion of Jeff's. Jeff is a wonderful upper school teacher and resource. And I as I work in the summertime, I pop into the classes that are going on, and it's really amazing what kind of stuff they do in the summertime for 3 hours. So I'll put his email in the chat in case you haven't seen it in the literature. And again, feel free to email him. We also realize that July is a pretty busy month for vacations, and so there certainly is an expectation that if you need to go away for a week, that's perfectly acceptable. You don't have to be there every day. We would certainly hope that you would, but we understand that many of you have made summer plans, vacation plans. And so if 3 of the 4 weeks in July work for you, that works for us as well. So, Mr.
I think we're available for questions now, Mr. Lawson. Is that where we are?
Yes. Anyone who would like to ask some questions, yes, certainly you can do that. Any questions? Just unmute and you can ask.
I had a question about the arts electives. So you mentioned that there are like 19 kids or 18 kids taking some of those courses, and that how they perform in those courses determines what happens next. So how many kids are going on in their sophomore year and taking it? And if they don't, then what are their options?
Oh, that's a good question. And I don't have off the top of my head the number that are continuing. My guess is around 80%. It's not a set number in a given year. It's a number based on the work that the boys are producing that given year. So if you have a really talented group of lads, it could be 100%. The boys who don't continue in that option would do the same thing that the boys who do the sort of robotics, American government, or based on statistics do. They take the art and music history combination in their sophomore year.
And then is there any requirement in their junior and senior year as well, or are there totally different electives?
So yeah, we're getting a little bit far ahead, but I think it's good to sort of have a sense of where the road ahead lies. In the junior year, a number of boys will take just 5 courses. The college counselor's recommendation is for juniors it's better to do well in 5 courses than to do less well in 6. So that'll be part of the conversation that those boys will have with their form chair in that given year if they're interested in taking 6. The majority of the boys that continue to take 6 in the junior year would be sort of the art and music, the double language kids. The arts kids would be the second largest block. Then you have a few kids who, a certain percentage of the class will branch out and do some other things too.
Yeah, we also have an opportunity for boys to take an AP art history class and we have juniors and seniors in there, correct, Toby? Yeah, yes. So that's also an opportunity. If boys don't necessarily want to take a visual art class with drawing or painting, they can take the AP art history class. A couple things in the chat that I'll try to address. What's the difference between French and French 1? Okay, so Toby, you want to just kind of tackle that one for a minute, because I think that's a great question.
French 1 would be for those boys who are starting French for the first time. So continuing French, which would be our French 2, would be boys who've had French in the middle school. This is a Spanish year, isn't it? Or is this a French?
Spanish.
Oh, Spanish, yeah.
Spanish year.
So most of them are going on to Spanish, but I think the question came from the fact that French 1 would be a class that's on another campus, right?
Correct.
And
Yeah.
they'd have to cross the bridge. So
They'd have to cross
the
the
levels
bridge.
of French are all on Gilman's campus.
All the other levels of French are on Gilman's campus through junior year. Senior year, there may be some boys who would go off. And French 1 is one of those courses with limited spaces, which would not be true for French 2.
Honors math, how that's chosen. Armand, you want to tackle that one?
Yep. So students that are already in enriched math in the middle school and are performing adequately would be recommended. And I think generally people who know if your son's in enriched math, they would be moving into honors in the upper school, unless you were choosing otherwise.
I can take the advisor question. So sometime probably in the next 4 to 5 weeks, members of the upper school and members of the middle school will come together, and we will start figuring out we'll start pairing boys up with advisors. It's actually almost a 2-afternoon process. We're very careful about this. We're very intentional. I would say, in full honesty, we don't always get it right. We've got a certain number of boys that do change, and those connections have not been what we thought. But we do not simply pull boys' names out of a hat and assign them to an advisor. We do a really, I think, thorough job with a lot of different voices in the meeting, trying to pair advisors up with advisees. Probably like the middle school, right? Boys will stay with their advisor all 4 years. So, again, some of those relationships grow and get better, and some do not. But we do intentionally try to fit boys with specific adults in the upper school.
And I would say it's helpful for us if you, have some specific thoughts about, what kind of a person would be useful for your advisor. You can communicate to his current advisor or to one of us, either to me or to Mrs. Mitchell. Like there are certain characteristics that you would like. It'd be important for him to have someone who's very hands-on, someone who's more hands-off, someone who has a soft touch, someone who has a heavy hand, whatever the things that you think are important. Those qualities are important. So as we're sitting down discussing each boy and what is the appropriate advisor, we have some information about that. So it would be helpful to us if you share those kinds of qualities with either your advisor, current advisor, or either to me or to Ms. Mitchell, and we can.
Yeah. So let me review the language. There's a question about languages. So on Gilman's campus, we teach ancient Greek, we teach Latin, we teach Spanish, and we teach French beyond French 1. Okay, starting with French 2. So starting with French 2, all through Spanish, ancient Greek, and Latin. The other languages that are available are all taught at RPCS, Roland Park Country School. That would be Arabic, Russian, Chinese. French 1, Mr. Broadus, where is that?
I was just glad you went start with Greek and Latin. You made me very happy, Mr. Heubeck. Thank you. French 1, I believe, is at Bryn Mawr.
Okay, right. We've been working together a long time. I know it makes you happy, Mr. Broadus.
No. There was a question there about working ahead in math. The math department does have placement tests available for people who are trying to skip levels. I think it's important to note that the anecdotal information that we're getting from our college counseling office is that being advanced in math beyond grade level is providing no advantage in the college process whatsoever. And to some extent, I still remember Mr. Gilline, the math chair, remarking, we had a young man who actually took all of his math at a college level starting in 9th grade. And by senior year, he was the boy who had progressed the furthest in math, but he was not the most skilled math student in the grade. And that's sort of Mr. Gilline's remark really stuck with me about that. So yes, there are opportunities for boys to take placement tests to skip a level, but we're not sure. That means they may be missing something fundamental at their grade level, and it may not really be playing an advantage for them.
And I would say, to add to that, the boys are gonna, the progression is, as Mr. Broadus said, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I think it is good to get kind of a big picture. Most of the boys in the upper school will take Algebra 2 in 9th grade, Geometry in 10th grade, Pre-Calc in 11th grade, and Calculus in 12th grade. Almost probably 99, might even be 100% of the boys take 4 years of math. We do have boys then that will take an AB or BC Calc, and we do have some electives in the 12th grade that move beyond the BC Calc. This year we have a numbers theory class. We've got a statistics class. So there are to double up in math as a senior if that's what you really want to do. And as Mr. Broadus said, we do have some boys that have taken some math classes. Do not encourage is skipping a level midway through. So one of the things that we have not done, and we are not going to do is take summer credit, let's say in a Hopkins talented youth program. Okay, we want the boys to take math unless they max out with our sequence.
There are a couple of questions in there about choices. So there are only two choices. Well, two course choices would affect the schedule that the boys have to make. That's their language choice and then their 6-course option. The question there, if the boys' 6-course option is second language, he's not electing a primary language and an elective language. They're interchangeable. He could continue with both of those for the remainder of his Gilman experience. He could take they could take them both for 3 years. He could take them both for 2 years. But he does not have to declare one as his primary language until he obviously chooses to drop one. Was there I think that may have been all the sort of questions that I saw.
Let's see. There was a question about American government, not being clear about how that plays into.
American government would be a 6-course choice. It has nothing to do with the graduation requirement. It would, boys who took American government would be in that group of boys who would then go ahead and take art, music, history their sophomore year.
There was a
What is
question
not, so if a boy is interested in 2 languages, the 9th grade is the year to make that determination. A number of the languages would not be available to that boy, including the unique languages, as a sophomore if he's not already started in them as a freshman.
Toby, you want to take the first part of the robotics piece, and I could get in the afternoon about
Sure.
that?
So essentially there are 2 robotics options. The first one is the course, which meets during the top 6 periods. There's also a robotics club, which Mr. Heubeck can talk about.
Yeah, so the robotics club is something that we've really built up over the last couple of years. Many of the boys that are in the robotics club will represent Gilman at robotics competitions. It is interchangeable. The robotics class that is in the first 6, that is in one of the 6 classes, Toby, I believe are mostly 9th graders, right? They're all 9th graders. The afternoon robotics is open to everybody. So some of the 9th graders may continue with the robotics in the afternoons in the 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. And so what we're seeing is that a lot of the boys that took the robotics class are also jumping in the afternoon slot and then continuing in the afternoon post 9th grade. So we're getting a nice mix there.
I saw a question about how students are chosen for honors math. And I think my best answer there is they're chosen for honors math if they're currently in the enriched section of math and performing well, or, I'm not sure. I think if they're performing exceedingly well in the sort of general math class, that they might be considered to move to enrich. And if that starts to happen at the end of the year, they could still be possibly recommended for honors in the upper school.
So let me add to that. The math placement in the 9th grade is done at the middle school level.
Right.
What we will do in the upper school is we will evaluate all the boys after every year. And so if a boy ends up in regular math, or let's say regular physics in the 9th grade, and has done very, very well in multiple ways, then we have no giving them an opportunity to take an honors class. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is, if your son does not start in an honors physics class, there certainly is going to be an opportunity for him to move up, let's say, into honors chemistry in the 10th grade. I would say that it's not the norm, but it's certainly an opportunity, and we do it every year. We have a handful of boys that will go from a regular level to an honors or AP level. So that's something that we feel very strongly about in the upper school, and something that we we owe to the boys who really want to be in that level and challenge themselves. Boys will take one elective in the 9th grade. So that one elective, right, to get a 6th class. The electives really kind of will then kind of pick up as they get older. In the 11th grade, they can take an elective as a 6th class. Not all the boys do that. In fact, not even close to the majority do that. And then in the 12th grade, history and English are all elective based. So in the 9th grade, you have to worry about one elective.
So in the next, I guess it's already started in most cases, your son's advisors will be discussing with them how the class choices work. And certainly if there are additional questions you have, or if there are certain things you want your son communicates to the advisor, you can feel free to communicate that directly to the advisor, because the advisor will be the one inputting the information and gathering the information to build the schedule for next year. Any other questions? So I'd say for the remainder of the week, continue to have conversations with your sons if there are things that you're wanting to make sure he communicates. And then again, if there's something specifically you want to make sure that the advisor understands about how to build a schedule, feel free to reach out to them directly. And
yes, world cultures is the history class in the 9th grade. Yep, that just came through.
mm-hmm. Anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Broadus or Mr. Heubeck? All right, thank you.
Mr. Blossom, there's a question about robotics versus the club. The robotics class is a class that meets every other day. There are assignments that are graded. There's a syllabus. There's a bulletin. There's coding involved in that class. The club is more of really kind of building robots, getting ready for competitions. There is a coding there's a coding kind of activity that boys can also sign up for. But coding is taught in both the club and the class. I would say that for the class, coding is much more part of the curriculum and the syllabus than it is in the club. I think what the club is assuming is that there is coding knowledge already. And yes, if they took robotics in the 8th grade, they absolutely can join the club in 9th grade without being in the class. So you do not have to be in the robotics class to be in the club. In fact, there will be some boys that unfortunately aren't going to get into robotics if it becomes a popular choice. We're going to lottery out the robotics class. If your son does not get into the robotics class, there are plenty of opportunities for your son to be involved in robotics and or coding in our afternoon blocks.
We're still hanging on in case a couple more questions come through. I think we may have.
I have a quick question. Will parents get an opportunity to see the choices that their children have made since they're doing it with the advisor? Like, do we sign off on it?
I assume that you're having a conversation with the boys' advisor. It's how the process generally works. No, there's no piece of paper for you to sign.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's something that you got that maybe Armand or Nicole can offer. I think what we hope in the upper school is that the selections are made at the middle school level, and then those selections are turned over to us, and then Mr. Broadus puts them into the scheduler.
your son's advisor will be calling you in the next couple of days to say, here's what I got, this is and from it's yes, it's one selection that's sort of an elective, but he's also choosing. If he took both Latin and French or both Latin and Spanish, he gets to choose. Does he continue with both of those? If he chooses, he could choose Latin or Spanish, for example. Options come in like American government or robotics or sculpture or pinhole to digital and so on. And so we can help you as advisors walk through that a little bit more and answer any follow-up questions people have too.
So part of your, I think, I'm not sure if everyone heard, but your connection was sort of going out here and there, but just so you, just the first part of it, I think is the most important part. In the next couple of days, your advisor will be getting in touch with you to share, this is what your son and I have talked about. And yeah.
One more question about robotics and the challenge. I think it depends on, it depends on the skill level of your son relative to coding, and building robots. I mean, I think one of the things that I would assume, Nicole and Armand, you can help me with this. If a boy in 8th grade is taking the robotics elective in the middle school, I think they'll be just fine doing the club in the upper school. Other than that, I think we'd have to see, how much prior knowledge there might be, and how Miss Nichols and Miss Resnick is our upper school robotics teacher, along with Mr. Mr. Campbell, sorry, yeah, who teaches the course. And these are things that we can certainly talk about before we get to that point.
Any other questions before we sign off? And certainly if we sign off and you have another question, you can still ask. Certainly, give us a call or something if there's something that comes up that you think of after talking to your son. There's another question that comes up that you hadn't considered before. So certainly reach out, but hopefully at least now you have the nuts and bolts and the foundation of what you need to make the decisions to build your son's schedule for next year. So thank you all again for being here this evening. I hope this was helpful. And like I said, if there are new questions that come up, please feel free to reach out to us and we'll help you answer those for sure. Everyone have a nice evening and we'll see you and your sons tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. So Mr. Broadus, thank you very much.
You're quite welcome.
That was good, I think. And the fact that there weren't a whole lot of questions means you explained it well. So thank you.
Or people, it was the dinner hour, people that were otherwise occupied, but yes. Whatever makes the best answer there. Excellent, well, thank you.